The Big Ten's going to have some party crashers this year, and we're going to discuss it on the Portal Podcast.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. The Big Ten. 2 straight years with a national champion, Michigan and Ohio State, in consecutive seasons. And this year, it seems to be a little bit more open in some ways, or is it? I personally believe there's going to be some party crashers towards the top. And at the very least, the Big Ten will see a few teams continue to move up the ladder and cause problems for the traditional 3 or 4 teams that you expect. Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. Those are the 4 teams that pretty much have everybody's attention. Either they've won the Big Ten or won a national title, been in the Big Ten championship game, those 4 programs. USC may end up being one of those party crashers too. We'll see. But I have 2 other teams that I want to talk about that one's already kind of crashed, but people think they're going to fall off possibly. Maybe not, in my opinion. And there's another one that may even crash the college football playoffs. And then we also have a few teams that are going to move up the ladder because they can actually score. Hint, one of them is in Iowa City, and we're going to talk about them, including their quarterback, and why that can be interesting. Big Ten is also improving because of recruiting, not just at the skill spots in the sexy positions. We're going to talk a little bit about offensive line and how some teams have changed their program through the trenches and may even have a chance to move back up the ladder after falling off. There are a lot of different things to discuss in a massive league that goes across the country pretty much, and soon might even be in the South. So let's get started with a few obvious points. Number 1, Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon still have the best 3 rosters. There's not going to be any discussion otherwise on this podcast today. No doubt about it. Top to bottom, the Buckeyes, the Nittany Lions, and the Ducks have the 3 best rosters. Michigan, not quite where they were, but they just got Bryce Underwood as well. We'll discuss them plenty during this podcast. USC's challenging in some ways to try to grade them because they're not necessarily a balanced roster. We don't know what's going to happen with Maeva yet, the quarterback, but they got talent. There's a lot of teams like that in that anywhere from like 5 to 10 range, maybe 5 to 12. It's difficult. And then you got a guy like Damon Williams at Washington, who is absolutely electric. But does Washington have enough players? It's a fun league to talk about. But again, the top of the league, to challenge it, it's still Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. Maybe in that order, maybe it's another, but those 3 teams have separated themselves. So which teams can challenge and why? The top of the board for me is Illinois, with Indiana right there as well. You can kind of flip-flop them, and there's a lot of discussion about this on podcasts all around the country. Everybody's got an opinion. Illinois and Indiana come up a lot. Michigan as well. Some think that Bryce Underwood will take that step, but my pick is Illinois for the following reason. Brett Bielema is an experienced coach. He knows what it looks like to make it to the Big Ten championship. He knows what it's like to take on a program that, quite frankly, doesn't normally have the same access to elite recruits that some other schools do from a traditional standpoint. He's been at Wisconsin. He's been at Arkansas. Programs that can win, but they don't win at elite levels every single year. When I mean elite, like top 5, top 8 in the country, like Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon, like they're not quite on those levels. So he's had a taste of it, knows how to get around some of that. And the way he's done it at Illinois, and I'll dive into this even more later, is through O-line recruiting. They've signed 24 offensive linemen in the last 5 years. To my knowledge, off the top of my head, the only school that signed more offensive linemen out of the high school or junior college ranks over that same time frame would be the Georgia Bulldogs, which I think many of you know Kirby Smart really likes offensive linemen, and he really makes it a point of emphasis. But so does Brett Bielema and the Illinois Fighting Illini. They've got a lot of experience, and here's the big one. With Illinois, and this is why they're, again, the top of my surprise teams, just because you signed a bunch of guys doesn't mean that you're towards the top of the league. You still have to have a couple of dudes, and especially when you can have guys at the top, truly at the top of the offensive tackle position. They got J.C. Davis and Melvin Priestley, a couple guys that have been transfers that have a chance to go not just in the NFL draft, but maybe even be first or second day guys, depending how this season goes. If you put them on the corners and they've got an experienced group anyway, they got Luke Altmaier. They've got a defense that's got some experience. They lost key players on both sides of the ball. They lost a running back to Georgia. I get that. But they have a very good team. And this system is in place. His coordinators, a bunch of his coaches, as he discussed at Big Ten Media Days. This is a team with the coaching staff first that knows itself. They have experience at key spots, offensive tackle, quarterback, trenches. There's a lot to like. Now, there are some challenges, though. They play Duke's second game on the road. They play at Indiana game 4. They've got some tough games in general coming up down the stretch, but I think Illinois is a team that like 8-4 should be the floor for them. They will be one of the teams that I think ends up beating one of Penn State or Ohio State or Oregon, whatever, whether it's regular season, Big Ten championship. They're going to have a say in what happens with the playoff. Not saying they're going to make the playoff, but they have a chance. I'm going to leave that part for a little later in the show. For right now, they're going to be a mover and a shaker and a team that's going to cause some problems. Game 4 for the Illini, that's against Indiana. That might be the most important game in the Big Ten outside of those top 3 teams. Because the winner of that game, it's in Bloomington, so the Hoosiers have the edge there. The winner of that game has a chance to finish in the top 4 in the league and maybe sneak into the playoff. There's that chance. Both teams got experienced quarterbacks. Fernando Mendoza comes over to Indiana from Cal. I saw him play last year at the game Cal played at Auburn, and at one point they were, I believe, 7 out of 8 on third downs, and it's because of clutch passing despite being under duress. So they're my other team that I think can surprise. Yeah, Indiana kind of lifted up last year to a point where you shouldn't say just surprise, but a lot of the people that I've seen with prognostications, they don't think Indiana's going to be that great this year. I think they're going to be pretty good again. At least to some people, I think Indiana will be a surprise because I think 8-4 again should be the floor for them. 10-2 is not out of the question. Of course, they'd have to beat Illinois for that. Their schedule is more difficult, but they've got Surratt back at receiver. They've got some really good players on defense, inside linebacker that's an All-American candidate. They've got a defensive end that could be one of the best, if not perhaps the leading candidate to be Big Ten defensive player. They have pieces in place. So Indiana and Illinois, I think, could be that. And here's a couple other teams too. We'll talk about quarterbacks in a little bit. And Mark Gronowski comes over to Iowa. He's a guy that I think can help. Iowa has an elite group of offensive linemen from an experience and chemistry standpoint. And anytime that Kirk Ferentz has that, they're going to be a pain in the butt. And also Washington, again, Damon Williams. I love that guy. I'm going to talk about my quarterback rankings here in a second. I think they will also be a team. They're going to beat somebody like Ohio State or Michigan or Oregon or so. They're going to win one of those games. Got a low floor too, because I don't think they have the depth where they need it. But somebody along the way is going to feel the wrath of Washington. So again, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, and Washington, those are my surprise teams. We'll see what happens with that, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be a little bit more topsy-turvy in the Big Ten this year than some think. Also, another category I want to go into, dangerous and inconsistent. Michigan, get Bryce Underwood early. Like Oklahoma has him game 2, and anybody that plays him in the first 6 games, okay, back half of the schedule, look out. But they'll still probably be a little inconsistent. Minnesota, quarterback play, I don't know how that'll go this year, but their line play is improved. They've done a good job with recruiting. Southern Cal, Maeva's the guy now. Is he the one that can help them be consistent? I still need to see it. Still need to see more from their offensive and defensive lines, but they're going to beat somebody they shouldn't. And then Nebraska. Raiola, second-year quarterback. He's a lot more confident. He's taken on a leadership role. Much like Minnesota, much like Southern Cal, I need to see how their consistency is and how they do in the trenches on both sides of the ball, especially in the back half of the season where depth matters. But they're probably going to beat somebody that has more talent than them. The Big Ten is going to be a very difficult league from week to week to predict, and it's going to be a lot of fun to cover. I'm really looking forward to it. When we come back, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks, rank them here in the league, and have some fun with that. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Ever wish managing your money felt a little bit easier? With Monarch Money, it can. And whether you're growing your savings, planning something like buying a house or buying a new car, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat to make that happen. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your finances, accounts, investments, everything that you've got going on in one place so you can manage your money and also start building wealth. If you're trying to help your granddaughter get to college, whether you're just trying to save some money for a home improvement loan, knowing how you spend and doing so efficiently to save yourself time and frustration is a good idea. Monarch Money helps you put everything in one place to figure out how you can make your life easier and more financially lucrative really fast. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst, and I love looking at all these different rankings and all these different lists across college football and giving my own take. I think it's a lot of fun and just interjecting the recruiting point of it, and that's why I'm going to be talking about the quarterbacks next. Some thoughts on some of these guys that I saw play coming out of high school. Some of them, like Gronowski, we'll talk a little bit about him here in a second with the quarterback rankings, why it's fascinating with the transfer portal. The Big Ten has a lot of interesting information based on the roster management side of things. So let's start off here for number 12. I want to do a top 12 quarterback list. And the first guy is a player that could end up in my top 4 at the end of the year, but I have no idea where. I'm just going to say it now. I have no idea how to rank him because he parted ways from last season on a high and a low at the same time. Like USC's Jaden Maeva almost had a chance to beat Notre Dame, but he had the 2 pick sixes late in the game, had some mistakes. They got to clean that up. I need to see it, but I think he has a ton of talent. And obviously USC's got, Kai Lemon and a bunch of guys that can go get it at receiver. That's going to be a fun offense, but can he be consistent? And this league's deep at quarterback, but with a lot of guys with questions. But again, I got him at 12. If you put him at 5th, I wouldn't argue with it, but Maeva has a little bit of experience, but now he's got to be far less turnover prone, especially for me in critical moments. Great story. He's a guy that was recruited out of high school to go to UNLV. He's a transfer portal guy. He ends up at USC. This is a great story and why college football is so much fun. Number 11, speaking of transfer portal additions, Mark Gronowski. Look, Iowa gets a kid from North Dakota State that knows what it's like to win a title, but he didn't do it at the FBS. He did it at the FCS level. And now he's going to Iowa City where they're grinded out, run the football-oriented offense, or are they? If they're ever going to throw it up a little bit more, this would be the year. And I'm not saying they've got the second coming of Jerry Rice in Iowa City, but they've got some pretty good athletes, and they've got a good stable of running backs too. I know they lose a stud, but they should be good. And their offensive line, including their center in particular, should be one of the better groups in the Big Ten in the nation. Iowa's going to be a pain for some teams. They averaged just under 200 yards rushing last year. I don't know if they'll have exactly that same total, but Gronowski will extend some plays, get some yards on his own, and he'll make third down throws and even some first down throws, quite frankly, that make it easier for the run game and take some pressure off the offensive line. Have to play darn near perfect to be quality teams. They also have Oregon at home. I think they got a couple other key games. I want to say either Illinois, Indiana goes there, etc. They're going to have a big say in the race in the Big Ten, and Gronowski's going to have a big part of that. Aiden Childs. This is a guy that I'm just going to throw it out there. Elite arm talent. Michigan State has that guy, but it is now time. Last season, he was 192 of 323, only 59.4%. First year as a starter, 2,415 yards, 13 TDs, 11 picks. Especially early in the year, Childs was pretty awful. He struggled with some of his reads, looking at receivers too long, etc. I expect a major step forward. Jonathan Smith's a really good coach. He's originally committed to Oregon State where Smith was, and he followed him to Michigan State. That could be the team that I wouldn't want to play like the last 4 games of the season as Childs figures things out, he was a highly recruited young man. Some schools like Notre Dame and other programs out west, et cetera, tried to get him to come to their schools. And again, he was loyal to Smith, but that's a player that if he takes the right step forward, they're going to have a race for the team that surprises the most too, with, some of these others I mentioned, like Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, like they could enter that fray, but I still think they need another year on defense to be consistent. Number 9 is Dylan Raiola. Just maturity. As a true freshman, he was a 5-star recruit. Of course, his father played for Nebraska. He was a big-time player out of high school as well, goes to the NFL, et cetera. Can they take the steps necessary on offense to be more dynamic? They got more receivers. They bring over a big-time transfer from Kentucky. They have all these athletes. But with Raiola, there's 2 things that I want to see. More mobility and the willingness to make the wow throw. It's okay if you throw a pick every now and then, if you are also, keyword if, you are also making some wow throws. Last year, they were too predictable. Part of that was because they were protecting a true freshman quarterback. Big arm, more experience, and from all signs, he's become a leader in Lincoln. If Dylan Raiola is that guy, they'll have some more success this year, and they might even, possibly, be a team that finishes in the top 6 of the league. I wouldn't be shocked, but I need to see it with big plays on offense. I think they're a step ahead of where they were last year just because of his experience, but now we need to see it in clutch moments. And if there's any team that has been non-clutch in those close games over the last 5-6 years, it's Nebraska. We need to see it this year. Let's see what Raiola does. Next, Bryce Underwood from Michigan. If you don't know who he is, you soon will. True freshman, but he is one of the freakiest recruits we've seen in the last several years. He'll be 225, 230 pounds this fall. As a true freshman. He can really run. He's got a cannon. All of those things. I know it's unusual to have a freshman on a quarterback list. This is a rare player. Will he be the true starter from day one? I don't know. But by game 4 or 5, I just about guarantee he will. Back half of the season, games 7 through 12, watch out for Bryce Underwood. Number 7 is similar. Julian saying he's a redshirt freshman in Columbus, Ohio. More of a pocket guy, not the biggest player. 6'1", 6 foot, 200 pounds, give or take. But super accurate, understands where to spray the football around the field, and he's throwing to a bazillion good receivers, including Jeremiah Smith. I don't think he will win the Heisman, but he'll put up 2,500 plus yards pretty easily. Whether he gets over that 3,000 mark might depend on how well they replace the running backs and figure that out. They've got plenty of talent there, but it's not going to be the same as it was last year with like Travion Henderson back there, among others. I'm curious to see how much they let stay and kind of turn it loose, but man, is he talented. Nico Iamaleava at UCLA, super talented, obviously, one of the freakier athletes in college football. Does he have the players around him, though, to take advantage of his arm? Obviously, the saga at Tennessee came to a close, and he transfers back to his native Los Angeles area. I think he's a really exciting player, but I need to see more in terms of what he's able to do with maybe a little bit lesser talent to put him any higher than 6th. When we come back, my top 5 quarterbacks in the Big Ten, and then we're going to talk recruiting in the trenches and why it's going to impact who I think is going to finish at the top of the Big Ten rankings. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Top 5 quarterbacks in the Big Ten for me this year go as follows. Fernando Mendoza, formerly from Cal, a young man out of Columbus High School in Miami, Florida, went all the way out to the Bay Area to play for the Cal Bears his first 2 years, transfers to Bloomington, Indiana to play for the Hoosiers. Very accurate, consistent, smart, savvy, and just clutch. He didn't have much help along the offensive line last year. Cal's O-line struggled, and he still can't win. He still went 265 to 386, 68.7% under duress, which is very, very impressive. 3,004 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Does he end up throwing for a bunch more yards? Not necessarily, but I bet his touchdowns go up. They got Surratt. They got more speed. They've got some pretty good running backs, way better offensive line at Indiana. Good coaching staff, better defense than what Cal did. And I just think that he will fit into that scheme very well. He might surprise some people with his running ability too. Fernando Mendoza is just nifty enough to go get you that 6 yards you need on 3rd and 4 and just like dive across, get a couple extra yards on top of the first down. He's that guy to keep drives alive. He is the dagger. Fernando Mendoza always seems to throw the dagger right when he needs to, even when the chips are down. I really like him as a player. Some guys even have him as a possible first-round draft pick. I don't know if he's to that level yet, but he's trending in the right direction. And Indiana's proven they can take guys as one-hit wonders at quarterback. They've done it at IU in the prior with their staff before they got to Bloomington. He could have a huge year for the Hoosiers. And again, just to reiterate something I said earlier in the show, that Illinois-Indiana game, week 4, is huge. Mendoza is going to have a big say in that. Number 4. This is one I took a little bit of a shot on, but I've seen him play in high school. He was, to me, the best high school recruit that year in the class of 23. That's Dante Moore out of Detroit, Dr. Martin Luther King High School. Accurate, poised, consistent, got the arm, and the moment was never really too big for him. I think that Dante is a guy that now that he's at Oregon, he had a chance to sit last year and watch. He's in his 3rd year of college. He's going to take a pretty big step for a guy that's quote unquote truly a first-year start. Like he started a little bit at UCLA his freshman year, but now it's just, no offense to UCLA, the difference in wide receiver talent at Oregon is pretty significant, especially in a sense of depth. They've got some good tight ends too. He could have a monster year. If he throws for over 3,000 yards, would it surprise me? No. I still think he'll have a few down moments because this is the first year that he's been thrust into the spotlight. But again, kind of like another kid from the state of Michigan, Bryce Underwood, I expect him to really step forward and have those moments where it's going to help him get to that moment where he's kind of a teeter-totter Heisman candidate at some point this year. I don't think he'll make it all the way to New York City, but I think he's going to be better than some others. And then he'll probably have 1 or 2 games where he kind of falls down. I don't want to say face plants, but he's going to have a good year. Probably will have a higher interception total than needed for Oregon to win a national title or whatever, but I still think they'll make the playoff or come close. They'll be on that fringe. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I really like Dante Moore overall. Really good football player. Luke Altmaier, Illinois, is my number 3 pick. This is a guy that's been through the ringer. He had confidence problems, self-admittedly. He discussed that Big Ten media days. He was pretty highly coveted out of high school, goes to Ole Miss, transfers to Illinois. Wasn't great, continued to get better, and towards the back half of last year, like you just kind of had confidence in him. He had some pretty good receivers last year at Illinois too that have both departed. But now he's the guy and he's the leader. He's the one that's in the focal point of directing the entire offense and kind of being the face of the Illinois football program. There's no reason to think that with their offensive line, and again, they've got 2 really good tackles, a ton of experience, and they've just pushed the pile forward on O-line. I'm going to finish the show with some O-line recruiting numbers for the Big Ten. Illinois doing very well. They should be able to grind out wins because of that offensive line. But if Altmaier, despite losing 2 top receivers, throws for 2,500 yards plus, 20-plus touchdowns, don't be surprised. I know Bielema is a conservative coach, and he's done well with it, but he's got a guy now that has pretty much a command of the offense. He's a veteran. He's seen what it's like to be in the spotlight at multiple places, played in the Southeastern Conference and the Big Ten. I think it's pretty safe that he's going to end up being one of the best players in the conference, and he's one of the reasons that I think they're going to be a big surprise team in the Big Ten. Damon Williams is my number 2 pick. This kid's just a freakazoid. Not the biggest guy, but he's 5'10" or whatever. Insane athlete, though. He could play slot. He could play about anything you can imagine, and he's got the arm, too. Damon Williams, you better get him this year, and you better get him early. He's only a sophomore. The ceiling is super high. He's going to have some lows still, but he's a freak. In limited action last year, he was 82, 105, 78%, 944 yards, 9 yards per attempt, 8 touchdowns, and a pick. This is the new guy to watch in the Big Ten. Mr. Excitement. He will be a player that ends up making it to an NFL training camp despite being like 5'10", 190 pounds. The rarest of the rare. Like, he's that guy. He's so dynamic. It's not even funny. And then top of the board is Drew Allar at Penn State. He was 262 with 394, 66.5%, 3,327 yards, 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I don't think he's satisfied with making the Final Four last year. He has something to prove, and that's one of the reasons that I'm a big fan. From listening to Drew Allar, I think he's really ready to take that next step, but he also has something else that's a benefit to him. All those guys that came back, to both the running backs, they went out and got him some receivers, including Pena, the guy from Syracuse. That's a big transfer portal addition. They've got unfinished business. Will they make it to the college football playoff and make a ton of noise? I don't know yet. I expect them to, but you got to prove it 2 years in a row. They're the hunted that got the circle on their back. We'll see what happens with them, but you've got a veteran who's got an NFL future at quarterback, and I think he's the best QB in the league headed into the 25 season. Now, as promised, here are a couple of recruiting notes about the Big Ten. I went through the last 5 classes for every Big Ten team just at offensive line, who had the 5-star, the 4-star, and the 3-stars and all that. Just a few notes about how your team is doing. And I won't go through all the teams, but as I mentioned, Illinois took 24 guys over the last 5 years. If you're not going to sign 5-stars, sign a bunch of players. Some guys will wash out, and then you still can go get 1 or 2 guys out of the portal, and that's what Bielema did. He got 2 players. 2 players, again, out of the portal that have helped him, and getting NFL talent at tackle is hard. The 2 guys for him are J.C. Davis and Melvin Priestley. If those guys go along with their interior players, more homegrown, they've got a chance to have the best line in the Big Ten, and certainly at least top 4. That's why they can compete with anybody. On the flip side, and give Indiana credit, they've only signed 15 linemen over the last 5 years, but the portal additions they've had, including Pat Coogan from Notre Dame, has been a starter. He will be their pivot man at center. Indiana's offensive line is going to be one of the better units in the country as well. They've got multiple transfers they're going to hit. IU's ability to evaluate talent has been great. Iowa, they've only signed 15, but again, they hit at such a high rate, it's ridiculous. Kirk Ferentz, man. You got to give him credit. He might be the best head coach / O-line guy in the country. And that's why they're, again, like the other 2 schools I just mentioned, potentially a team that's going to cause a lot of problems in the Big Ten this year. Then you have some other things to look at too. Like Maryland took a lot of guys that kind of went the same route that Illinois did, but they still haven't hit 23 guys they've signed. That's a ton. Some junior college players and a lot of 3-star players, but their O-line still probably isn't where it needs to be. Michigan, they had a very high number of 4 and 5 stars. They make the, as Bud Elliott likes to call it, the blue chip ratio. They over 50% of their O-line recruits in the last 5 years were 4 and 5 stars, 10 out of their 18. But let's see what happens with them. They got some youngsters that got to make it happen, especially Sprague at right tackle. Michigan might be a year away, but they're going to be an exciting team. Another team that I'm impressed with, despite not signing a ton of great offensive linemen per se, only 4 4-stars out of the 17 players they've signed in the last 5 years. That's Minnesota. They've done a great job up front. Nebraska, they signed 19 players, but only 3 of them were 4-stars. They've fallen off in the last 5 to 7 years on offensive line recruiting. They're getting better, but they're probably a year or 2 away from where they need to be. Ohio State, no surprise, 18 guys signed, 10 of them 4 and 5 stars. They'll have one of the best lines. And the highest ratio that I've seen in the nation, regardless of league, is Oregon. According to 24/7 Sports, and that's the company I went by for these rankings, 14 of their 20 signees over the last 5 years in the trenches on the offensive side of the ball were 4 or 5 stars. 70%. That is extremely high. That was higher in Georgia, higher in Bama, higher in Notre Dame, or anybody else. And then Penn State, 11 of their 18. So there's another one as well. And on the other side, just to show you how a program can fall off, I don't know if I've ever seen this before. Purdue's only signed 15 players at the offensive line in the last 5 years. And in 2023 and 25, they didn't sign an offensive lineman from the high school ranks. 0. That is how, as they say, you lose, and you lose big. One last note, shout out to Rutgers. They kind of went that route of taking a lot of guys too. They've signed 24 players in the last 5 years, so they're in a pretty good spot. Good for them. USC, only 5 of their 19, but they're getting a little bit better. We'll see where they are. Wisconsin's got a pretty high hit rate too. 9 out of their 15 are pretty good. They should bounce back at least a little bit, but their schedule is brutal this year. I don't know what to think about Wisconsin. Their win total by FanDuel was only 5.5, but the Badgers up front are much better than what people are giving them credit for. got an experienced quarterback, and it's a pressure year for that coaching staff. They got to get it done. They got to find a way to get to 7 or 8 wins. Can they do that? I don't know. They play Bama on the road, etc. But I expect Wisconsin to be a pretty good team. Good running back room, got a speedy receiver. Let's see what happens in Madison. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We will see you again soon.